Within the last 90 minutes, we learned the names of two people killed in a wrong-way crash on the 215 near town center over the weekend. The coroner identified those victims as 39-year-old Kenyana Long and 48-year-old Jose Taveras Acosta. Nevada State Police say Long was driving the wrong way in the 215 when she crashed into a truck and slammed into another car. We're working to find out the exact cause of the crash. Fox 5's Joe Vio has been tracking efforts by NDOT to prevent this type of crash from happening. He joins us now with an update. Joe?
Yeah, here's an example right here. The wrong way flashing signs, the driver turning around. Now, we learned today some more wrong way driver warning devices are expected to go into place this spring here in the valley. Now, those are not in the place where the deadly crash happened over the weekend. Durango and 95 already has one, but will be upgraded, and we'll see them on the 95 at Kyle and Sky Canyon and I-15 and Star. Now, wrong way signs at ramps flash at drivers who are starting to go the wrong direction onto a highway. The hope is drivers will see them and turn around, preventing a wrong way crash. There's a turnaround right there for you. We've seen video from NDOT of cars turning around where those flashing signs are now in place. There's another truck right there turning around, seeing the signs. Now, NDOT also told me today the warning systems were tripped 216 times from June 2020 to the end of 2022, and confirmed cars turned around 182 times where those flashing lights are located.
The study shows that this system is working and that it does get drivers' attentions. Unfortunately, the vast majority of these drivers are impaired in some way. And if they trip the alert system and they see those flashing lights, that's the last line of defense before them getting onto the freeway and potentially hurting themselves or someone else.
So only a handful of cars actually made it onto a highway going the wrong way where those flashing lights are located, about 20 cars. But NDOT isn't aware of any resulting wrong way crashes. Now, the systems also record cars going the wrong way, and that information can quickly be fed to patrol cars to help locate and stop a wrong way driver ASAP. Now back to you.